Inclusion to me means everyone and all people. I was lucky enough to grow up overseas, so I've seen different cultures, I've witnessed different communities. I've been really lucky enough to also experience a lot of the world through sport. So for me, that was a really natural conduit into communities by joining a club. I'm really passionate about sharing that with other people and ensuring that all people can share what they're interested in and find a sense of belonging in their community.
Working with such a close-knit team, everyone really relies on everyone else. And what that really means is not only do we hold each other accountable, but we're fully supportive of everyone's projects and everyone's tasks that they're given. We have fun, a lot of fun, but at the same time we do a lot of work. And if you don't have that balance, not only in your life but in your workplace as well, it really does affect that productivity. But one thing that I can say at Inclusion Solutions is when we do make that promise, we do get things done.
I absolutely love it. It's probably the best job I've ever had in my life. It's really exciting and it's really good to see that a lot of people are passionate about inclusion and that we all are going towards the same common goal.
We have a really good team dynamic. There's just this underlying theme of respect for each other's beliefs, but it all comes together into this really great team.
I love meeting new people, so it's really exciting to work in an industry where we get to meet people from all walks of life and support them to be more inclusive. It's great, every day is completely different. We all get along really well and we all have different backgrounds, and I think that's what makes us a strong team. We're really diverse in where we've come from, but we're all working towards a common goal.
We're across best practice not only when it comes to access and inclusion, but we also understand what community is and we understand what the challenges communities are facing. We're in a very interesting time, both politically and financially, and being exposed to community life really is the forefront of where connections are made.
Over the next few years, I believe there is a greater need for inclusion solutions to exist. Communities are segregated. We've got political leaders and others that are driving segregation and really division in community, and as a result, the work that we do is really around unifying and bringing people together. So it's less about highlighting the difference and more about actually getting people together and sharing in the things that bring us together, our commonalities and our shared interests. Nala Kadich, Wajak Mort, Kayan Karak, Nijab Puja. I'd like to start by acknowledging the local Wajak people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, and what a beautiful piece of land that it is. I, on behalf of Inclusion Solutions, would like to pay tribute to the elders and leaders of the Wajak community, past, present and emerging. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Denver de Cruz and I'm honoured to be your MC today. I'd like to start by acknowledging a few special guests in the room. Firstly, Shaun Nannup from Wisdom is Your Life, CEO of Australian Inclusion Group, Paul Flay, Australian Inclusion Group board members Elizabeth Shaw and Matthew Popham, the Mayor of the town of Cambridge, Kerry Shannon, representing Minister Mick Murray's office, we have Chief of Staff Emma Ramage, representing National Disability Services, Jane Cousins and Jeremy Barrett-Leonard, representing Scott's Great Walk for Telethon, Scott and Nicole Guarini, community activist and changemaker David Taylor, and representing Beyond Bank, our Social Inclusion Forum partners for 2019, Katie Voss, Holly Temperley and Georgie Nicholas. A little bit of housekeeping before we get underway. I'd just like to remind you about your mobile phones. If you don't mind, just take a minute to check your mobile phones are off or on silent, that would be excellent. Bathrooms, for those of you that might need a little break, just behind this wall. So as you entered on the left-hand side, down the corridor just behind me. An emergency plan in the unlikely event of an emergency. Don't all steam ahead through the doors, but in single file, if you wouldn't mind making your way across the car park over to the grass area, that would be great. And just a reminder that this is a smoke-free venue as well. couple of other housekeeping things. Photography, we have Emma Bruse in the room. So Emma, thank you for joining us again. So Emma will probably badge you at some stage to take a little photo with a sign out the front or in front of the media wall. We've got Bernie Marcelo at the back of the room. So welcome, Bernie. Thank you again. Bernie will be videoing all presentations to ensure that this is an ongoing resource for communities around WA as well. What we'd love for you guys to do is to tag Inclusion Solutions, that's at Inclusion Solutions WA on Facebook, with the hashtag Social Inclusion Matters, if you don't mind. We'll put together a photo resource after this as well. So a small overview of today's proceedings. Shortly we'll have a welcome to country by the one and only Shaun Nannup. We'll have Christy Jolly, Inclusion Consultant from Inclusion Solutions, presenting a presentation to warm the palate and set the scene for our brilliant presenters today. Our presentations will come from Christina Matthews, Joan Foley, Andrew Kikeros and Diana Allen, and finally Ben Popham. Following the presentations, we'd also like to invite you to stay around for a little bit of networking and some refreshments on us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get underway. So what I'd like to do is firstly start by introducing Georgie Nicholas from Beyond Bank. Please welcome Georgie.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this most important event, and I thank you all for taking the time to attend what will most certainly be an informative and educational forum. Feeling included, joining in and participating is what life is all about. We learn about inclusion and how good it feels as small children when we are asked to join a sporting team, go to a friend's party or act in a school play. As teenagers, being included stops us from feeling isolated and alone. As adults, we learn to appreciate the power of inclusion and how, as a community, we achieve things much faster if we are all in it together. We realise that being included is a right, not a privilege. So what has a bank got to do with inclusion? It's a good question. Beyond Bank is a customer-owned bank, which quite simply means we're owned by our customers. This style of ownership means our links to local communities are strong and profound, not distinct or remote. Our customers include us in community activities, local non-for-profit events, sporting fundraisers, and you name it. We get to see inclusion in action every day. When we heard about Inclusion Solution and its excellent charter and work in local communities, it was the perfect fit for us. It's all about belonging, and we feel very honoured to partner with an organisation that puts inclusion at the heart of everything it does. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgie. Without the support of organisations like Beyond Bank, this forum wouldn't be what it is today. And I'd also like to acknowledge NDS, past sponsors of the forum as well. So Jane, thank you, and lovely to have you here with us today. If you'd like any more information from Georgie or the team, they're just sitting at the front table, so please make sure you go and see them. A very community-minded bank, and it's great to partner with you guys, so thank you, Georgie. Now, Shaun Nannup is running a little bit late. However, I'd like to start by inviting Christy Jolly up to the podium. So Christy is our inclusion consultant, and as I said, she'd like to lay the scene and provide some context for the wonderful guest speakers that we have to follow. Please welcome Christy Jolly.
Thank you so much for all coming today to be a part of this forum. I'm going to share a bit of a personal story today. I'm going to start by saying, just remember, you're a big fish in a small pond here, and when you go to Perth, you're going to be nobody. These are the parting words that I received when I was leaving my hometown of 2J 3 years ago. The irony of that, right, is that I was going to an organisation that values people based on their skills and their knowledge and their passion, rather than the labels that society puts on them. And in this case, they were talking about my size. After my temper simmered down, and I thought more about what this meant, they were actually referring to an idiom around how, based on who is surrounded by you, how much impact you can have. And in some ways they were right. I had grown up in 2J and I'd spent my whole life there, and through my work through sporting clubs and community groups, I had met lots of people. I did all my schooling there. I knew lots of different people from many different backgrounds. And when I entered into my role at the Shire of 2J, I'd met other people that were outside of my interests. It's a population of just under 4,500 people, so realistically, that isn't a big pool of impact. But in so many ways, they were wrong. I don't believe that impact is based on how many people we have surrounded by us. And I'm sure many of you here in the room can agree with me here. The conversations we have at Inclusion Solutions are around grants that we're proposing and putting forward, and the grant funders want to know how many people are coming to your training sessions, how many people are coming to your events, how many people this, how many people that. But I don't believe that we can measure impact simply on how many people we get in the room. How can you measure the impact on a mother who no longer has to travel 200-kilometre round trip to take her son with a disability to play sport because his community has now welcomed him to be a part of that sporting club? How do you measure the impact of a woman who has recently retired and she has all these skills and knowledge that she's contributed to society for many, many years, and she's now giving that back to a local community group in a meaningful way? How do you measure the impact of a newly arrived resident who has a passion for cooking, who's sharing those skills with an aged care facility up in the hills of Armidale? She's developing connections with people she never had and friendships. How do you measure the impact of that? How do you measure the impact of a young man who had been travelling a school bus route for many, many years without any friends on the bus, but because of a cricket club that's in this room here today, he has friendships because he was included in that club? I don't believe that impact can be measured based on how many people we interact with on a daily basis. Impact is about one conversation, a presentation that you might see here today. One moment can significantly impact a person's life. And that's the message that I want you to take away today. The people that are here in the room, we're all here for a common goal of social inclusion. I'd encourage you to have those conversations. Ask people what they're passionate about. Ask them what they're skillful at. Connection and meeting one another is far more impactful than statistics on a grant writing application. If you take anything away from the presentations that I've given here tonight, is interact with one another. You never know how significant one conversation could be. For those of you that are from sporting clubs, find out what your members are passionate about. Find out what they're knowledgeable about. Give them a role within your club that ignites that passion that they have within them, and give thanks to that. Value what people can give to your club. That's what true inclusion is. From an organisation's perspective, look at your staff members, find out what they're good at, do the same thing, ask the same questions. Place great value on what we have inside of us and the skills that we want to give back and contribute. And that's how we'll achieve true inclusion. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the presentation.
What a powerful piece on impact. WA, we can do this. We've got 130 people in the room today. I dream of a world where we're all included. We as an organisation dream of a world where we're all included. We need this more now than ever before. I'd like to introduce you to our first guest presenter for the night, Christina Matthews. A little bit about Christina. Christina's been the CEO of the WACA, my ex-employer, since 2012. Christina is also a former Australian cricketer, one of only three women in the entire world to hold a position of CEO of a first-class cricket association. Christina's had 27 years of experience in various management roles and is passionate about ensuring that sport provides an inclusive environment for all that want to participate in this thing we call community. When asked why social inclusion matters, Christina responded, "As someone who grew up playing a non-traditional sport, I understand what it feels like to be excluded, and no one should be made to feel that way. Holding a senior role in sport, it is my duty to ensure that sport truly reflects the community and provides an inclusive environment for all that wish to participate. Please welcome CEO of the WACA, Christina Matthews.
Thanks very much, Denver, for stealing my speech. Thanks, though, to Denver and your team for inviting me to be part of this. And I'd like to start by just acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and pay my respect to elders past and present. Could I just acknowledge the staff at the WACA who really drove the formal arrangement we have with Inclusion Solutions. When they first came to me and talked to me about it, I went, yeah, okay, I had no idea really. And then as it went along and I understood it more, I thought what a fantastic opportunity for us to really partner with someone so we can really understand inclusion in the way we need to deliver programs to make everybody feel included. So thanks to people from the WACA, and just a shout out to Quinns Rock Cricket Club, who amazing club, do a lot of good work in the community, and congratulations, Club of the Year. I think they'll be Club of the Year for the next 10 years. You know, a great example for other clubs in the state. Just a bit about my background. I grew up playing cricket. I joined my first cricket club when I was 12. I became a volunteer at 14. I played club cricket for 30 years, and I was lucky enough within that period to play cricket for Australia for 11 years. So quite blessed in a lot of ways. And when you're doing something you love, you don't necessarily pay attention to how people are treating you or whether you're not being included in things. What I did recognise the moment I turned up to a club at age 12, and strangely, I am quite old, so that was a very long time ago, how long ago we were wearing culottes. And if you don't know what culottes is, that is a very long time ago. It was unusual to have a female cricket team in your local area, and I was just lucky we did, and my mother arranged for me to go down and join it. What I noticed immediately was that I was with people who were doing what I wanted to do, which was to play Australia's national sport. I never knew that was going to be an opportunity. I'd always played in the street with boys. I didn't know girls could do it. I was the youngest at 12, there was a 13-year-old, and then they jumped up to being 21 and older. So it wasn't a group of people who you would normally think would get together and play a game of cricket. But from the moment I did it, I loved being part of something that was more important than me, that was part of people who wanted to enjoy the things I wanted to enjoy. And it's been a lifelong passion of mine since then to, you know, when people ask me why do I do what I do, part of it is to try and give other people the joy I've got from playing a game that I loved. But what I did realise, it was the early 70s, and it was unusual for people to see women playing. There was a lot of women playing, but they were very well spread out, and it wasn't common, and there was certainly not much coverage of it. So, you know, we were often belittled when we came across men's teams or men saw us play, and then there was, you know, often let's call it banter, but really abuse from sidelines as cars went past or stopped and watched. And that, as I moved up the ranks and got involved in state cricket administration and then national cricket administration, you got to understand how excluded you were, not just from being asked to make coffee and things like that, but by not being heard, to what you achieved in the game not being as relevant as what they achieved in the game. And things like that, you sort of think you're always battling for acceptance. That was harder when I realised I was gay as well, so it was a double whammy. You know, you're all the time trying to work out, well, how am I going to fit in? So as I got more influence in my chosen profession, which is sports administration, I thought, well, I've got to make sure that any organisation I'm part of is inclusive. Now, I didn't know the word inclusive. I just wanted to make people feel welcome. And so any environment I have, whether it was a purely girls' environment, because I worked for a long time just in women's cricket, it was to make sure every girl that came into that environment had a good experience, no matter what their background, where they came from, so forth and so forth. At Cricket New South Wales, I got the opportunity to be head of the Commercial Marketing and Communications Department. And so very subtly, women started appearing in marketing campaigns, at functions, presenting awards, so forth and so forth. I didn't want to do it in an overt way because then you have to answer questions. I wanted to do it in a way that it was normal. You just do it and then people accept it and there's no question about it. Coming to the WACA, which I will, without hesitation, saying is the most chauvinistic boys' club I ever been in when I first arrived. And that's a lifetime of growing up in men's environments. So a nice challenge. I remember the day I found out that our women's team rarely trained at the WACA ground, and on the odd occasions they were allowed to come to the ground to train, the physio wasn't allowed to access the rehab rooms. They had to treat the girls at the nets because it wasn't their stuff. So little things like that, you go, that's just insane. So I set about ensuring that we were a community inclusive environment. Sport's job, in my opinion, is to reflect the community, the whole community, not just a privileged section of the community. You can't turn those things around overnight, but you can turn the thinking around overnight, and it is a change in thinking. I've been in enough rooms in cricket where we talk about girls' competitions, and we're in a very different framework today than we were even in 5 years ago. I would sit around the CEO's table at the Cricket Australia. They didn't even know there was an International Women's Day, let alone knowing why there would be one. And so it was talking to them about, they would talk to me like women were aliens. I don't know what to do with them. What do we do? What happens when a girl comes to a club? And you sort of go, oh my goodness. It was talking to them about, this is not a money issue. Inclusion is not about money. Inclusion is about a change of thought patterns and thinking about how you can include people, not how you exclude people. Now, people don't deliberately exclude people, they just don't think about them. And I was only talking to someone today about one of the football clubs who used the expression of, if we put money in there, it takes money away from the senior men's team. It doesn't take money away from anything. There is enough money to go around. There is enough resources to go away. It's about the choice we make about where we place those resources and that money at any time. And we've got to make sure when we're doing these things that they're sustainable and that they are going to live beyond the people that are there. That the strategies and the plans are not the passion of one person. And that's why when you're a leader of an organisation, it's important for you to be buying into that and then leading it. I'm very proud of what we do at the WACA now. Our women's program is leading the country. We're the only one, this is quite embarrassing, we're the only state in Australia that has a strategic plan for women's involvements. That's true, Joe, isn't it? I didn't make that up. Yeah. And so we've done that because I've spent 25 or 30 years passionately pushing the women's game, and if I leave, it stops. And I wasn't going to have that happen at the WACA. It's got to live beyond my tenure. We run an integrated cricket league now with various cricket clubs where they're integrating these programs into their clubs. So it's not just a program that's at the WACA for 4 weeks at some point and then there's no connection. It is an ongoing program within clubs, and we're looking to grow that. We have state teams for our intellectually disabled, deaf and hard of hearing, vision impaired, and we are developing the programs to help support them. We run every year a Governor's 11 versus Lord's Taverners 11, where we bring everybody from our inclusions programs together with people from our mainstream programs to play in a match where the Governor is the lead for one team and Lord's Taverners back the other team. And it is a fantastic experience for the players who are in our Warriors squad and in our Fury squad to captain those teams and work with these people. And it's always on the WACA, and we make a big deal of that. And the next phase we're going in is to make sure that we become a disability employer as well. And we're working with agencies who work with people with a disability to match them up with the jobs we may have that are suitable to them. Because we want our staff to be seeing the people that we want cricket to be available for in our office every day as well. It's not easy in the sense that you have to have a culture that allows you to do that. And I'm really proud of our community cricket team who lead that and have driven so many of our programs. But it's so important that sport leads in these areas. The moment sport, I mean, we're all familiar with what's happening in rugby over East, and it's an absolute disgrace. You know, we use religious freedom as a way of just being able to spread hate, if you like. My opinion, it might not be others, but you can have your religious beliefs, but you shouldn't impose them on others and judge others because of it. And we need to stand up, and I hope Raylene Castle, as head of rugby, is able to fight the lawyers to take action on that issue. And we all need to keep doing that. We all need to fight for inclusion, because I think most people think inclusion is about disadvantage, disabilities and whatever. Inclusion is about what every human being needs. Needs to feel connected, needs to feel included, needs to feel part of something bigger than themselves. So thanks very much for listening to me today, and enjoy the rest of the night.
What a story of influence. Christina, I love two quotes there in particular. It's sports jobs to reflect the local community, and I think that's exactly where we start and exactly where we should start. Excellent. The other one I love is that all it takes is a change in thought patterns, and very much so. And I think Christy started that conversation off very well this morning, or this evening. So well done to you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Christina Matthews. Now, we'd like to retrofit the schedule today by inviting Shaun Nannup. Shaun, unfortunately, got stuck in a bit of Perth traffic. We all know what that is. But for those of you that know Shaun, you'll know that he's a wonderful human being. And Shaun comes to us from Wisdom in Your Life. So, Shaun, please, welcome. Yeah, I think so. Joe, this one?
Thank you. Cheers, mate. Once again, it's my humble apologies, and I'm just grateful that I made it, and obviously having such a vast number of people in the room who are coming together to create a sense of safety for people to be included, and also to set an example for many people beyond this day. It's a great honour to be in the presence of maybe something that really has now been a benchmark of many other people who have come before us to show inclusiveness is important. And if we talk about one, we talk about all. And this is where, in Aboriginal culture, if I bring it to the room in the best way that I can, is that we literally, as a culture, embedded in our beautiful Whadjuk language of the Bibbulmun Nation, it was all about acknowledging that the many things around us are our great teacher. Everything has an opportunity for us to be able to gain some wisdom or something. There's a learning in everything. And if we were to look at everything as one, then it gives us all then a set of understanding that we're not above, we're not below, and we're on an equal footing. That this beautiful planet gave us all life. And this planet we call Buja, our mother. There's a lot of people that may argue that point, and I get it. But just for a moment, the earth gave us life, which gave the life to the tree and the bird and the river and so on. For us, if we be truly brutally honest with ourselves, unless there's another planet out there that gave us life, and maybe we're going to need to know where that is, but let's leave the dollar value here and let's just go there and hopefully nurture and care and give and give and give. Just pure love. If we look at the tree and the bird as our brother and our sister, what a beautiful world this will be. Because in nurturing the tree or the bird and the river, you nurture yourself. There's a two-way street. The tree, in its rightful place, will give unconditionally. If you wish to have shelter, then by all means have shelter. If you need food, I'll give you food. If you need water, by all means I'll give you water. If you want oxygen, well, give me your carbon. Well, let's share that. Because if you go to a planet called Mars, and you were to open the door there, you'd last maybe a couple of seconds if you're lucky. There are no trees there. But if you were able to stay there for as long as the man who went to Mars, Matt Damon, that movie, he did everything he could to get home. If we went to Mars and spent a bit of time there, didn't have that luxury, and we came back, and you walked down the street and you saw a tree and you walked over and said, thank goodness. You know, I love you. I've been to a place where I don't see these. And that's what you would say to people as they go past you. Are you okay? What are you doing? So you look like you're all right? It's not normal, mate, to go and hug a tree. Didn't you know that? The first thing you turn around, if you're one of those people that have been to Mars and come back, and you say, well, I've been to places where, unfortunately, that tree is not available, and I'm just so grateful. And it's okay, I understand. You haven't been to Mars? That's fine. Because my value for that tree comes from a place where I felt something that was missing now here. And when you feel something that you know has every right to be in its place, where we know really gives value, then you do everything to acknowledge it and celebrate it when it's in front of you. At some point, the WACA or the locker room, there was not many girls there. But now there are many girls there. Now there are many people being in tune with one another. And now we're looking at disability to make sure they're there as well. Let's make sure that all the cultures are there as well. Why don't we do that? Why don't we bring in different beautiful religions as well? Why don't we bring them in as well? Why don't we make everyone inclusive? Interesting that, isn't it? When we talk about one, we talk about all. When we know the value of something, the answer comes just like that. And you don't feel as though for one moment that you're on the wrong path. I'm going to hug a tree, dude, for the rest of my life. Because I've been to a place where I felt that the presence wasn't there. So if we look at Aboriginal culture today, as I bring a welcome to country for you, I want to do my best to make sure that you have a right to say to yourself, is Aboriginal culture still there? Is it something that really has a place within the society and the group that we're in? Or my life, my children's life, our future as Australia? Does it have a place? Because I can tell you now, from my personal experience, my grandmother, my grandfather, both sides, didn't have the opportunity to sing her songs, to do their dance, to paint their story, to speak their language. It wasn't present. It was at the first start of their life, maybe up to the age of 5. But beyond that, there's a lot of our family members lost their lives because they stood for a belief not to harm the river or the trees or the birds. You may know the story of many of Aboriginal men that were taken out to Rottnest Island and left there to die because they refused to destroy the tree and sow the land and put up fences. This is our story. And it has a rightful place. And these wonderful people over here, they said, we need to welcome the country. And they invited me to come. And most people know me generally about welcome to countries. I do my best to be inclusive and to speak the truth and to give value with honesty and openness. Not to separate, but to empower us to take the next step where we include everyone so they can share their gift as the tree. I've been to a place where I sat beside my brother who passed away of cancer, and I know what it's like not to have him here today. It burns a hole in my heart. But it didn't stop me from sharing love. When my grandmother was forced Nova to speak her language and never do her art, she never gave up. And I choose not to let that moment, those moments, not allow me to share love. If we want to look at these words of inclusion, let's give people the opportunity to be acknowledged and to be able to have a rightful place to share what? Love and unity, freedom. So what am I doing when it comes to doing a welcome to country? It's an opportunity for us to get in the rhythm of our great mother Buja, the land that gave us life. And when you get to that place where love is the key factor, there is no separation whatsoever. And let the foundation of your meeting today be founded on unity, justice, acknowledgement, empowerment. All those wonderful things come from a place of love. You might stumble on your way and make a few mistakes, if we call them, but they could be an opportunity for us to remind us, hey, it's okay. You're surrounded by good people to make sure that you're not alone, and we will overcome. The hardest job, I work at Wisdom in Your Life. Basically the name, find wisdom in your life. The hardest job I've ever had to do was learn to love myself. And if you think teaching others to love themselves is easy, well, I have to say the second hardest job is to get people to feel as though they can embrace their truth, embrace their gift, and just give it away. People are waiting for you. Whatever you gain in this room today, let it be a rhythm that will echo in the future of anything that you're connected with, and say, oh, you think that I'm the only person? Oh, I've got many people around me. We come with many, many gifts. So in light of doing a welcome to country, I'd like you to connect with the person next to you by holding hands, locking arms, putting hands on their shoulder, if that's okay with you. Whatever's healthy for you, please connect now with the person. I'll do the welcome to country, and then we'll continue on. Stay connected, don't let go. All right? So what happens is, when we... remember I was saying earlier, see how everyone wants to tell a story and talk and laugh? He's really making us do this. I can't believe it, you know. I hope you don't mind. When we do a welcome like this, everyone, when one sits, we all sit. In action, we also reinforce the verbal. So if we want to say that we're an inclusive country and we accept everyone as equals, then, well, we're going to put it to action. What do you reckon? And so if one sits, we all sit. And if one's drinking beer, no, I don't drink myself. When one sits, we all sit. So what happens is we have this time when everything is one, no separation. That's the spirit world. So when you look at spirits, there might be 20,000 in front of you. You wouldn't know where one starts and where one ends. So when we talk about a welcome to country and put it into action, when you sit at the same eye height, that means that we're all equal. So when someone walks through the door and they say, oh, what's going on there? Oh, Shaun's doing a welcome to country. Where is he? He's blending in. And I don't know which one's who's where. So I'm following in the footsteps of our old people to reinforce. Don't put yourself too high. Don't let that label become too of a separation to your community if you call yourself the Prime Minister. So here we go. Warawira Buyakanan. Warawira Buyakanan. Bad spirit, go away. We don't need you right now. Murichurandat yening krobadan krobadan. Yen yen yaku. Good spirit, come sit, not in the air but on our skin, dart yening. And when you feel the goosebumps going over your body, remember in spirit country there is no separation. All our grannies are here right now dancing across your skin. They're saying, look at our children. Look at the unity. They have overcome so much. We should be so proud. they're dancing with your spirit inside you. All mammals are born with the spirit child inside you in our Wajak Biberman language that unites us instantly. We walk in the footsteps of you, our old people. I say, are we? Wanju nija, Wajak nyunga puja, wanju nija, Wajak murich yogas, wanju, welcome. Murich is really good, yogas are women, Murich Barman is our men, to our Kullingas here, our children, to that Wirra Kullinga inside you, dancing and celebrating right now, going, wow, man, we've got so many gifts to give. Thank you again for having us here. Welcome to this wonderful country. I know you call it home, and basically, I'm introducing you to a rhythm that really now is hopefully wavering beautifully amongst us all. Let it empower you. Let it remind you of the moments when you don't feel love, that there is love everywhere. We just have to keep our eyes on the goal. And believe me, people will come. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Bordawan Jenang, never goodbye. We'll catch up with you later.
Thank you, Shaun. Cheers. Thank you, mate. Thank you, Shaun Nannup. Important messages there about valuing our land, valuing honesty and openness in humanity. A message about sharing love and empowering ourselves and others while we do that. In Shaun's words, in spirit country, there is no separation. And isn't that what brings 130 of us together today? Now, from one great human being to another, I'd like to introduce you to Joan Foley. Got the right one. Joan's going to be talking to us about community development in regional communities and sharing her experiences and rich history of community engagement. A little bit about Joan. It's an extensive and impressive CV which includes a couple of things here. Founder of Hedland Community Living Association, or HCLA, established in 1996. This organisation has been running for more than 20 years with barely $1 of funding from anyone. Joan's also affectionately known as the mother of the Pilbara. I got to know this back in 2009 when I first visited Port Hedland. When asked why social inclusion matters, Joan's response was, "The people I've learnt the most from are often those society chooses to devalue. I couldn't bear to not have the cross-cultural, age-diverse, ability-diverse, financially variable group of friends and acquaintances that make my life so rich, and I wish the same for every person on the planet." I'd like to welcome you, Joan, and invite you to come up. So please welcome Joan Foley. Joan will be joined by Christy Jolly as well. So please welcome Christy back as well.
Thank you, Denver. Joan and I just joked as we came on stage here because she's already crying and she does get quite emotional. So what we're going to do here today is find out more about Joan and the great work that she's done not only in the Pilbara but all over our state. And I was lucky enough to meet Joan for the first time in February this year, and she's the kind of person that you develop an instant connection with, and I'm sure that you'll have many, many things to learn from her today. So to start us off with, Joan, for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm the second of 6 children, born in Albany to a very happy family. We moved then to Hedland. We then moved to Perth for a while, and then we had the opportunity to go and live at Kikeros Island. Lived there a couple of years in early teens when it was still people doing all the things that they'd traditionally done for 200 years. So that was a real eye-opener for us, and that was the meat and free veg era, and we got to have like rice and as a savoury, and that wasn't happening that time. And then I did my schooling in Perth and did Princess Margaret training. And after my nursing training there, did staffing time, went to the UK for a couple of years, came back and went to Carnarvon for 6 years, where I met your aunt and uncle,
There's our connection.
There's all those connections. And in saying that, I'd like to also acknowledge the Yamaji people of Carnarvon who called me Sister Joni. Respect. I love the respect thing. They find they won't just, call you Joni. I was Sister Joni there. I went to Ireland then, where I met and married my husband, and came back to Perth. Oh no, we went to Derby first. Spent 2 years in Derby, so love all the Derby mob as well. Came back to Perth and had our 3 sons in Perth, and then when the youngest was 18 months, no, a bit more, went to Hedland. So in the intervening 28 years, I've lived in Hedland, where my parents first met, so it's got real ties to me. That's it. I'm only allowed a minute at a time. She's got me on a... And anybody that heard that I was going to do this said, 15 minutes? Never.
So what Joan hasn't touched on is that she's the founder of an organisation called HCLA, so you'll be able to tell us a little bit more about that. But also, the organisation hasn't been funded at all for the 20 years in its existence. So can you tell us more about HCLA, what it is, and how you've managed to be not funded at all for that time?
I don't think it's a kind of thing that, highlights people's interest. The things that the funding bodies want are things that youth and the things that will keep them off the street, and there's Indigenous funding, quite, with the mining, that's quite high profile. It's not a thing that grabs people's attention, I think, and we ended up acquiring a daughter, having had 3 sons, by taking one from the hospital. No, not like that. The family actually did major research about who I was, and found out that I had nursed my daughter's great-grandmother and great-great-grandmother. And when her father found that out, and then did some other research from one of our elder women, that he then agreed that we would be the best people to take over her care. And that gave me 2 family members with disabilities, having my second born as a preemie baby, and I say, being a nurse, that he has mild cerebral palsy. He says, being a David, that he's just got a bit of a limp. And he's now working for the government in Canberra, so I think a Port Hedland boy as a bureaucrat in Canberra might be a good thing.
So you've told us a little bit about Annika and how the idea for HCLA came about. Tell us, what is HCLA and what have you achieved in the Hedland community?
It's an organisation of like-minded families that had lived there unsupported. So we initially started off by recognising that we needed to change how the education system was managing their support workers, housing, health, where we were all going in one person at a time and getting nowhere. And when we went as a group, we got a little bit more action. We got Shire to build wider footpaths and those kind of things. And then as we progressed, we realised that we wanted to do fun stuff as well. So we applied and actually ran in Black Rock Stakes, which is over the years was a local organisation that poured the money that was raised back into the community, and they helped us buy an amphibious vehicle, and that then left us go, you don't like the banana splits? No, that's only the older ones will remember. Those vehicles that go well through snow, go well through tides that move over a 7 metre tide, and so we're able to take people less able up and down depending on the tide, and they could fish until they were blue in the face, which they usually did.
So tell us, what's life like in the Pilbara for people with disabilities? Because I think a lot of the people here in the room may be from the metro area and haven't experienced Pilbara life. So tell us, what are the differences?
Well, we know that because people in Perth think it would be great to have a town in Karratha that's only just come here because of their mining, not a town that's been there for 125 years like Port Hedland. And so they make all their decisions based on Carnarvon, and they move the centre of the Pilbara down to Broome, which is the edge of the the centre of the Kimberley, down to make it North Pilbara. So a lot of the decisions that are made about what goes on for us in the north is not made is made in Perth by people who have never been there and have no idea about what works for us. But what's fabulous is that we live inclusion. Everybody knows who everybody else is. You get stopped by old Rose Williams saying, "I've just had the most wonderful experience. Your son has grown to such a lovely young man and he served me in the bank." And he had one day's work, and they would walk past and see, "Not a good day for banking, no Dave." "Oh, good day for banking, Dave's there." Because the Chinaman that taught him to box and actually hit him, Dave would come back with a big bruise on his face, and because his little legs weren't all that agile, he was delighted that China would hit him in the mush. And I was like, as a mummy, I was struggling with the fact that he let, "I told you, don't walk like a cripple. Just get on with it. You're never going to pick up the girls if you walk around and hopping along like that." And he loved it. He adopted the guy that had the pizza place, and he gave him work when he was only about 10. But he just saw that he was lively and gave him the opportunity. So and my daughter danced. She's in a wheelchair, for goodness sake, and she did ballet. For 7 years she did ballet, Shiketti style. And when the teacher wanted to get her, she put her through the exams, and the stuff that she could do with her arms, I can't do it very well, but you know, soft arms and round fingers and all of that, she could do. Pull up, pull up, pull up, and so nice posture. And the stuff that her feet didn't do, she just got her to demonstrate in her lap with, you know. And so she did 7 years of dance, a long equal age group. I've never seen anybody in the city do that. So she's like the only gay in the village, you know. She's the only spina bifida in town. But she's not, because she's just doing what everybody else is doing. And she has the little shitty turn, "I don't want to go to ballet." I said, "Rightio, when your fees are finished for this semester and you've got a team that you've got to work alongside of, and after this term's finished and you've done the concert, then you can not go to ballet and you'll be right to go to physio for the hour." "Oh, well, right then, I'll go to ballet." But she never ended up with the rods that most spina bifidas end up in their spine, because she had, I don't think she's got it now because I don't, you know, she's not dancing, but all the pull up, pull up, pull up as she was growing meant that she had a stronger set of abs.
So we've talked about how Annika has experienced inclusion, and as a mother, how warming that is for you. What I'd like to hear about now is the opposite of that. What are the trials of being segregated as a person with a disability?
There's a load of them, and mostly they're hinged on, like I listen to people here in the city saying, "Oh, you know, such a body, you know, inclusions WA weren't the ones for me, so I've moved to such a body, such a body." We've got no choice. Before, about 5 years ago, the powers that be in the city decided that number-wise, what would be best for us is to have Pilbara Kimberley care. Can you imagine, you guys that run this, you know, Paul and your gang, can you imagine serving an area that goes from the bottom of the Pilbara, the biggest shire in the world, right up through there, over to the Coonawarrigi, and then all the way up to the top of the Kimberley, and your organisation's going to serve all the people in that area with disabilities? Do you think we got a good service? You want your child that's, I mean, my kids can speak, but there are some in our communities that don't have a voice. You see the people down here get to use the voice-activated things, the ones that have eye contact and all the technical. That doesn't happen. You don't have a regular speech therapist there. This new NDIS is going to allow you choice. Yeah, choice about what, who. And the one person there is new, and the new organisation, they've had 5 different CEOs in 5 years. The people from the commission, the local area coordinators also turn over. The only constant is we that live there. And we get disheartened, we get disillusioned, and had to kind of gang together and make our own little gang, because we're the only ones that get it. And we just look after each other. I love it though, in that There's nobody allocated, okay, you're the support worker and you're the person receiving care. You get these guys to go from where they've had that kind of situation, and we go on camp. Okay, who's going to be your support worker? I said, no, you're supporting me, I'm supporting you. You're caring for him, I'm caring for you, you know? And get them to cook and do their day. Everybody just does what everybody else is doing.
So you've got 20 years of experience of running an organisation that is run by the people for the people. So what I want you to finish up with today is if you could tell the audience what your advice is for including people with disabilities and what change they can make.
When we think of ourselves, the best of us, don't introduce ourselves as what our religion is, what our ethnicity is, what our anything is. Like, we shouldn't have to introduce, I'm Craig, I've got spina bifida. You're not Craig spina bifida, you're Craig. And I just think that if we could all see that people that come on the planet with their disability they come already as gratitude awareness raisers. They've got a job, you just haven't employed them yet. They should be in your organisation and just have them gazette a job as gratitude awareness raisers. And every time, if they don't have speech, then every time that they'll have a card to say that if you have to feed them, every time you feed them, they have to take whatever you put in their gob, that they have to have an accessible toilet, that they have to have a pad, that they have to, and you need to be grateful every time you get busting for the toilet. Go to the toilet all on your own, no catheter, no pad, no lie down and have some adult change you. You can go all by yourself, do your own zipper, the whole lot. You should come out of that toilet and punch the air, say, yeah, another day in paradise for me, because that's what having my friends and my family do for me. That every day, you don't need a catheter, you don't need medication, you don't have to go back to the doctor and have him stick another needle in to take more blood from you. It's another day in paradise.
Thank you very much, Joan. So as you can see, Joan is very, very passionate. She's very shy, so you might need to warm her up a little bit before you talk to her, but please have a chat to her. Thank you so much, Joan, for your time.
I love the story, Joan, of HCLA. I love the fact that it was community fighting against a bigger system, and I think you guys knew exactly what you wanted, and there's no surprise at all that HCLA still exists and thrives today. So well done on your immense journey. For those of you that have not met Joan, I'd really encourage you to, at some stage tonight, to pull her aside and have a chat. As Christy said, it might be 10, 20, 30 minutes and then an hour later, but you'll enjoy every minute of it, I guarantee. Now, exclusion comes in many forms. It's not just about disabilities, it's not just about Aboriginal or Indigenous or, individuals, it's also in other forms, and this particular project is a really innovative piece, and I'd like to invite Andrew Kikeros and Diana Allen to come up from the town of Cambridge. They're going to talk to you a little bit about the Wayfarer project, a project that's just receiving some really great reviews. So a little bit about Andrew. Andrew's had 30 years of assisting older adults to live a life of purpose beyond paid work. Diana is the Senior Community Development Officer, and Andrew's from an organisation called Lifetime Wise. Diana is the Senior Community Development Officer from the town of Cambridge. Diana's been employed in all levels of government, federal, state, local, and has also been a nurse, an Australian Federal Police Officer, a school teacher, a health promotions officer, and an army activist. Clearly not the lady to mess with. When asked why social inclusion matters, Andrew's response was, social exclusion kills our need to be human, while social inclusion is the blood that runs through the veins of healthy communities. Diana's response, differences are not intended to separate, to alienate. We're different precisely in order to realise our need for one another. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Andrew Kikeros and Diana Allen.
Thanks, Denver. I was okay about doing tonight until I heard the people before me, and I've had a really weird feeling coming over my body, and I've actually recognised it's a thing called being humbled, so I'm a bit rattled. David White, in his fabulous book Crossing the Unknown Sea, Work and Shaping of Identity, talks about a thing called a firm persuasion, and his way of describing a firm persuasion is that in the work that we do, when we feel that what we do is right for us and it's good for the world, and that happens at exactly the same time, that's a firm persuasion. I love that quote. However, having a background in leisure, my view is that we find a firm persuasion in things other than paid work. So I want to ask a question. How many of you have participated in paid work today? Show of hands. Okay. I want to say thank you. This is my acknowledgement. My acknowledgement to say thank you for coming out at 5 o'clock in the evening, which is a sacred time. It's a time between the end of paid work and the beginning of this thing called night. And so a lot of you have given up family time, leisure time. So I just want to say thanks from my leisure background, if you like. The other thing, so the gift to you now, and it's not really a gift, is I'd like you to spend a minute thinking about how you find your firm persuasion. How do you and where do you feel that when you are doing something in your work, it's right for you and it's actually something that the world needs and it's good for the world and it happens at the same time? For those of you that didn't have paid work today, or those of you that choose to do this exercise outside of paid work, do the same thing. It may be that you find it within the lost art of serious leisure, or maybe you find it in the desirable and undesirable obligations of this fabulous thing called family. So just spend a minute quietly on your own. I was going to get you to talk amongst each other, but I think the din would be out of control. So just spend a minute contemplating how you find your firm persuasion. My maths is shocking, but it's probably close to a minute. Thank you for doing that. That was a really hard exercise for you to do, and it's something that I would normally spend 2 or 3 hours with people doing, because it's a big question. So thank you for the short time you did it. If we had more time, I'd ask you to consider what it would feel like to not have that firm persuasion anymore, maybe for another day. So David White calls this firm persuasion a great triumph of human existence. Now, we're entering a period of time now which is probably more significant than the Industrial Revolution in relation to the impact of work on our society. That's a big statement, and I've got nothing to back it up with. It's just something I've, off-the-cuff comment. But actually, hang on. At the moment, throughout the world, close to 24% of our population is at, already, or near retirement age. You think about that in Western Australia, that's roughly 303,000 people in Western Australia are 55 years of age and over and are either already retired, near retirement, or considering it. Now, I know we're entering a period of silver boomerangs and the unretirement brigade, and we're all being encouraged to work to 70. Now, there's a lot of people who will work into old age because they want to, and that's fabulous. And they'll get all the intrinsic benefits from paid work, the social connection, the inclusion, stimulation, all the things that we get out of paid work. There's also a lot of people who have to work through financial constraints, real and perceived. There's a lot of other people who will have to work because they have fear around leaving the paid workforce. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. There's also a bunch of people who are going to have a fabulous retirement, whatever that word means, that will do well because they've thought about how to find a firm persuasion in life outside of paid work. And then there's the other, and I work mainly with the other, and it's a big lot of people that aren't sure. They're not sure how to make sense of this thing called retirement. They're not sure what impact it'll have on their sense of self. They're not sure what it'll have on the impact of their relationships, their intimate relationships, their colleagues. So, can I grab a glass of water? Not the one I knocked over. Don't know what happened when I knocked the glass of water over. It's not nervous wee, it's actually... Well, it might be. I just said we. So okay. I've lost my train of thought. So we're in this period where there's a whole lot of people who are going to leave paid work, and what we have to consider, what I think would be good to consider, is how do we work with the people who want to volunteer, who actually want to give of themselves to a cause or something that they're interested in. Over 30 years, I've been really lucky to work with people who are about to retire, and it's run into the several thousands of people that I've come into contact with, both professionally and personally. I'm dead set interested in this stuff. I sit around fires with people up north when Rach and I run our tourist business, and I just love hearing people's stories. So they all want to volunteer. The vast majority of people want to volunteer, which is terrific. However, I hear people saying things like in my workshops, I should volunteer. I suppose I should. I ought to give back. You know, it's about time I not contributed, but it would be good if I gave back. So I think for those that do want to volunteer, it's incumbent on us, and why this project's come about, to deeply understand what their needs are, what the giver is, what do we have to do for them to help them give. Secondly, we need to understand the needs of the community-based groups in the areas in which they're going to live, their local community. Now, here's the bit. If we do this well, if we cleverly map, trap, understand the attributes of our older adults, and if we deeply understand the needs of the community and we match them, two things are going to happen, and they're already happening. One is individuals are going to find a firm persuasion outside of paid work, and secondly, community-based groups are going to have more gas in their tanks, and they're going to be able to do more, including doing more for older adults. So to finish off, the first bit, I got together with Denver about, 2 or 3 years ago, and we spent hours and hours and hours and hours chatting and looking to figure out how we could solve 3 problems or 3 situations. And those of you who know Denver would know that he wanted to solve all 3 at the same time, so it got more challenging. Those 3 things are, how do we help older adults help themselves, and how do we help older adults help others? How do we help older adults replace the intrinsic benefits of paid work? And how do we help them in turn find social inclusion? How do we prevent them from becoming irrelevant or invisible? Secondly, how do we help community groups access this looming, massive human library that's walking out the doors of paid employment at the moment and will continue to do so for the next 10 or 15 years? And thirdly, and this isn't just us, there are other people probably in this room and certainly in this country and certainly overseas, how do we change the culture of volunteering to make it less obligatory and less time-centric, and make it more specifically targeting the needs of the community groups with the talents, attributes, values and willingness to give of our older adults in a way that suits them. For many of us, we never get to do our paid work on our own terms. So maybe this is our time to have volunteering on our own terms. Before I hand over to the fabulous Diana, my role in this project predominantly is to work with the older adults and map their knowledge, and it's an extension of what I do with my commercial practice. And when I started, I knew what I was going to get. You know, I've done a lot of this work. I knew that older adults have incredible skills, they have deep insights, they've got wisdom, and to be honest, I wasn't surprised when I worked with this group of people, the results I've got so far from them. But what blew me away was their humility and this open-heartedness to want to really give to this project. And I don't just mean for their own time for this next bit, but they actually really want to expand this thing. And that's an absolute joy for me, and I'm really humbled to be doing this work. So. Yep, there it is.
So why the town of Cambridge? Why do older people want to age in place? Is it because they grew up there? Is it because they have their families there? Is it because they have great memories? And
You have to go closer to the mic. You just
and they
whisper
want,
to me.
whoops. And they want to give back to their communities. So our age-friendly community project, which we completed in 2018, the summary of recommendations and key findings helped to inform a senior services strategy. One of the main essential domains as part of the age-friendly project, that part was civic participation or volunteering, and many community members expressed an expression of interest towards this area. So part of our plan was to invite older adults, as our town and our staff value them as assets, not limitations, and with a direct link to the Wayfarer project through Denver, who was one of our advisory network group committee members, we came up with a plan to present their pilot initiative to council, who supported this request and endorsed the first year with funding the project for us. There is some risk that also some community-based groups may disappear due to the lack of volunteers. During my personal experience in local government and other areas of volunteering, in the old, like around the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, volunteering was, for example, with Meals on Wheels. People would just drive in, and they were like the biggest group of volunteers. They'd drive in, they'd pack the eskies, we'd have a driver, and you'd have the gopher, we call them, and they'll literally run out with all these meals to the community and provide a meal. They'd knock on the door, drop it off, and off you go. And that was volunteering. It was wonderful. From that, I managed to work with a different type of volunteering through Australian Red Cross, and this is called a shark program. It's not the sharks you may think about. It's a supporting, helping and reaching kids program where I recruited and enlisted volunteers who went to schools to support and help new migrants, disadvantaged kids and of course young children in detention. Through that program they learned to provide literacy and numeracy skills, and they spent about an hour or two as part of their work in schools providing and supporting education. And another one, which is a totally different way of volunteering, is our new way of the Wayfarers project. This is community-based, asset-based community development project, and I'll now pass you over to Andrew. Yep.
So who and what are wayfarers? And those of you that are up on English will notice that we've spelt it F-A-I-R-E-R, wayfarer, which is kind of our way of being hip. Wayfarers are people that travel through time, and we see older adults travelling through living well into old age as being wayfarers. Obviously we work in partnership with local government authorities. They are the best place for this project to sit, really, because there's a geographic boundary around the project. People want to live in these communities. Local governments have strong community development networks, and we get to work with that team, which is what we're doing. The process is that we seek expressions of interest from older adults, and that's done through the usual social media and local papers, and we run forums and bits and pieces. We seek expressions of interest from community-based organisations. The bit with this, which is really exciting, is that we work with the community development team, we work with the community groups, and we do a community analysis, and Diana will talk a bit more about the one for Town of Cambridge. But in essence, we ask the community-based groups what their needs are. We drill, didn't want to use we drill down. We just ask good questions, and we keep asking until we find out what the specific needs are, and then from there we're able to match wayfarers in. So as I said earlier, I work with the community, the individuals. Once we've worked one-on-one with the older adults, we then match them into that community group, and we go with them to that community group and we evaluate it. We make sure that the relationship's working. So, mechanics, year one, we've got a pretty hands-on role. So Inclusion Solutions and my firm work really closely with a community-based organisation, or in this case the local government authority, and we're there pretty much the whole time and that we work closely together. The idea is that you take the energy and the expertise, and it's happening already with the Town of Cambridge project, and the wayfarers build and build and build, and you let them loose in year 2 to do what it is that they think with the Town of Cambridge the community is going to need. So we still have a role, not as strong a role, and in year 3 we see ourselves backing out. Of course we'll answer the phone, but we don't actually have much of a hands-on role in year 3. And that's me, done already. Fabulous. I'll walk away. Thanks.
Okay, the benefits for the Cambridge Wayfarer project, it includes a whole of community approach. It's asset-based. Our council and staff and the community look towards our seniors and older persons as assets, and that's how we'd like to include them in this project. So through expressions of interest, we managed to get 14 of them on board. The community clubs and groups, we invited all the community clubs, schools and groups to complete an expression of interest and identified the gaps through this process, where we then, through local government, we used the asset-based community development model with council's decisions to support this project, and then through the older persons, a gifting through, Andrew's got to finish this one, what gifts can I give to my community? Yeah.
The older person, it's not just what gifts I can give to the community. It's a two-way street. It's actually what's the reciprocation? So if I'm actually giving to my community, what am I getting back? And it's all the stuff we've been talking about. It's all about social connection. It's all about my sense of self. It's all about stimulation. Actually, fun is a really important thing as well for all of us in our life. So what gifts can I as an older adult give to this project? You know, we're asking older adults to be selfish, and I don't mean the kind of selfish you get told off for being as a kid, but selfish. We want you, at this stage of your life, to be completely self-fulfilled if that's what you choose to be. So you choose what you want to do, and you choose how you want to do it. If you've had 30 years of being in a professional role and you're great at strategic planning, then if you want to keep doing that stuff, you might do 2 days a week for 4 different organisations in a year. We're chucking out the rules with this thing. So,
Thanks. The Cambridge project outcomes. We have 4 phases for this project. Initially, phase 1 was to the community analysis, and we had 53 clubs complete a gap analysis form, and 11 clubs are engaged with the wayfarers. In phase 2, we had the recruitment of Cambridge wayfarers, where we had an expression of interest form put out on our website, and it was advertised, and people completed the form who were 50 plus, and hard copies also distributed to all of them. And from that, we received 14 wayfarers with their applications accepted. The next phase, which was the mapping that Andrew will talk about, and 14 older people have mapped their knowledge, skills and experience, and it'll then be matched. The phase 4, which is just being completed, is to match them to the needs of our community. We have a few wayfarers here that will later on will let you know where they are, and you can always talk to them about their experience in this project.
So the slide's self-explanatory, really. Are there any community groups out there that need help and in one form or another? Are you resourced to service your community well enough? Could you use some extra assistance? Do you know the talent, attributes, values, interests of people in your community? Denver and I have done some work with clubs where one club in particular, not the Town of Cambridge, said that I had, 250 members or something, and they were saying how they needed a particular piece of expertise, and we said, have you actually sent an email out to your club to see who's got that particular expertise, or a relative or a brother or a sister or a mother? So it's actually getting us to ask questions a bit deeper of ourselves. So what's the cost of not doing this? In the socialising side of things, please feel free to talk to myself or Diana or Denver or Adam anyone about what we're doing, because we're really keen for this thing. We don't have a proprietary over it. We really just want to see this spread, and we don't care if it's another name, another body, another place, another time. We just want to see this environment get created where older adults can actually give of their talents and gifts in a way that they choose to. So that's us, I'd reckon.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Andrew and Diana. So the Wayfarer project is a project reframing how we look at healthy ageing. It's a project that reuses skills. It revitalises individuals who are possibly at the risk of social isolation. It's about promoting belonging in our communities. It's also about assisting people to continue on this learning journey in life. A really important piece that Andrew said there was that it's not about us. It's actually about planting the seed for other communities to start thinking about a different way of ageing. Like it or not, this is going to impact all of us. We are all ageing. Now, I want to live in Western Australia that's happy to include me and can see value in me beyond my paid work. And I'm sure you do too. A couple other pieces, as Andrew and Diana said, we do have a few Wayfarers here today. So please make their time, please get to know them in the networking as well. News we received overnight that the Wayfarer project was nominated and has been shortlisted as a finalist for a national award, so the Inclusion and Diversity Award. So that'll be held in Adelaide, at Adelaide Oval on the 20th of May. So really exciting. And Diana, to you and your team at Cambridge, thank you very much for taking a punt on the project. One other piece of news as well, the Wayfarer project, for those of you that hail from communities as far away as Mandurah and Kalamunda, the project is coming along and starting on the 1st of July in Mandurah and Kalamunda as well. Thank you very much, Andrew and Diana, once again. Put your hands together for the... Thank you. All right, I bet you're hanging out for a beer or a nice glass of wine. We've got one final guest. Last but not least, I'd like to introduce you to a great young man by the name of Ben Popham. Ben's here to give him a round of applause. Ben's here to discuss his personal experiences related to inclusion. A little bit about Ben. Ben is an elite Western Australian swimmer. He won 2 gold medals at the 2018 Pan Pacific Games. He recorded the second fastest time in the world in 2018 for the S8 100 metres freestyle. I've also been told today that Ben's just qualified for the Australian team, so well done, mate. It's a great achievement as well, and probably another round of applause for that. And perhaps most importantly, or as importantly at least, Ben might disagree, perhaps as importantly, Ben wants to be a role model for other young people with disabilities to continue their sporting goals as well into the future. When asked why social inclusion matters, Ben's response was, social inclusion is a fundamental aspect of a healthy community. A community that has good awareness of how to include and adapt and accept its members and puts those practices into action is one that will develop at a faster rate than otherwise would be the case. Please welcome Ben Popham.
I thought I'd go with the pink today, but thinking I'd be the only one and stand out and stuff, but Denver's actually gone with it too, so no, that didn't work. But I'm listening to these speakers and they all have this wealth of knowledge and experience that they can really draw upon to sort of provide their recommendations, right? And so I'm sort of standing here as an 18-year-old boy, going, wow, like I don't have this wealth of knowledge just yet, but what I do is I swim up and down the pool a lot. So we'll take that and we'll provide what I think should happen based off that, right? So yeah, if you could, are there slides here? Oh, beautiful. Okay, so I'll just start at the start, obviously. So I was born in England and I also have a twin brother. And so this was really helpful for me and my family to sort of shoehorn me into normal sporting activities, right? Because everything that Adam does, who's my twin, I also do, right? So cricket and anything else, right? I just go in there, there's no questions asked. Yeah, no questions asked. And then so from there, we sort of build the the expectation that nothing is different about me, which is good, right? Because then you say, wow, like I can do everything that these kids can do, and there's nothing different or nothing special about me in the way that people have to sort of stand back and go, whoa, like this guy's sort of disabled and different. Let's sort of bring all the pressure off him and let him do his own thing. So I learned and developed with Adam, and so this really helped me because obviously I was treated the same, and so I learnt the same lessons that everyone does in sport, which is obviously resilience and character building and that sort of thing. So from there, that was really helpful because then I learnt the love for sport and those sort of things. And I think if you sort of saw me as a disabled kid and sort of pulled back and said, whoa, like let's not pressure him and let him achieve his goals and treat him like a normal kid, I wouldn't have got the benefits of sport, if that makes sense. So just my swimming journey. I started in a club called Superfins. Now the chairperson's here tonight, but no, nothing sort of changes. But they're very, yeah. Don't worry, it was positive anyway. The review was positive. I'm not going to. But they are very inclusion based, right? And so I started swimming there, and this is all about getting people in and really starting to love the sport. Emphasis on inclusion and friendship and that sort of thing. So from a young age, I was taught, right, this is fine, this is a good thing for you to be doing, right? And so these are the benefits. I made heaps of friends, love the sport, and I think that's where my passion started. I think this is really important, right? You need to get the young kids in at a foundational level, whether they're able-bodied, disabled, female, male, and just say, right, this is why you play this sport, right? This is the passion's here, and it's not money-based, it's not anything-based. It's all about the passion, so you've got to love it. And so from the foundational levels for the clubs in this room, just get the love of the sport there, and I think dropout rates and everything else will sort of reduce because you've got this nice foundation of people who really want to play the sport because they love the sport. And then I sort of went on this ping-pong journey where I was going from coach to coach, and we sort of went through this phase where every coach I'd go through, I'd have 2 years with them, and then they'd go off and I'd go to Karratha or go to England. And so I thought that I had really bad luck, right? Because coaching is quite like an intimate thing, and so you get used to this coach and their little mannerisms and what they like doing and all that sort of stuff. And then they go, right? And then you say you have to adjust to a new club, a new environment. But what I learned from this is that I've actually been really privileged because I've got to experience these different people and different coaching styles. So I think that's really helped me because it's sort of made me a more well-rounded athlete, if that makes sense. So the coach I'm with now, he's pretty tough. So he doesn't give me much slack, but I think I'm fine with that because that's where I'm at with my swimming career. And I think you need to, with all athletes, tailor your approach to the age of the athlete, the interests of the athlete, and try and make it as individualized as possible. Inclusion solutions sort of have this framework, and I think I kind of want to base my stuff off of it because I think it's really, really good and really, really helpful. A lot of people sort of come up to me and go, well, we know that we should be including people, but how do we include people? What are some good examples? What did work for you? What didn't work? And so I'm going to try and sort of give some helpful recommendations on what did work for me and what didn't. So the first one they've highlighted, I'm sure if you ask Amy or Denver, they can give you the foundations for inclusion. But the first one I've highlighted is attitude. So from a coaching perspective, are you open to accepting these people? Like, are you open to the possibility of having to change your program or change the way you approach things or learn new things on the fly, basically? So are you capable of taking on this challenge? Because it is a challenge, right? But one that hopefully is worth it. But in the end, yeah, the base question is, are you willing to do these things? So that's the first one. And then also the attitude also comes down to if you're the coach at a club, the way you treat these different athletes, I'll say, and the way you respond to them and include them is how the other people in the club are going to follow suit, right? So your coach I'll just keep it in swimming, but if the coach talks to me in a inclusive way and he doesn't treat me like something different and something to be scared of, then the other swimmers in the club are going to follow suit. So I think as a big role in your organisation, it's really important to set this standard for all athletes, just so everyone follows suit, no question asked. If you're a good role model, then it sort of just happens. The second thing is communication. So I think I'm going to take this as sort of a coach between a swimmer, but you can sort of adapt it to your own context. But for me, communication is incredibly important for any sort of relationship in sport in particular. So I sort of always have to say, this is working, this isn't working, and then my coach will go, I want this, how do we achieve this? I want your kick to be better, but obviously having cerebral palsy, my legs aren't up to scratch, but he sort of says, look, how can we achieve this by doing these certain things in the stroke, right? So we're always communicating, we're always saying what can work, what doesn't work. I think this is really essential. As you go through the weeks and the months of the season, your goals adapt and change, so you always need to keep your communication lines open to your athletes' needs and how you progress, right, in the sport. The second piece of thing that the inclusion solutions provide is this inclusion pyramid. I think this is really important, but I will focus on just the functional and social inclusion. So the interesting thing that I experienced in my short career is that there's two ways that coaches usually include me into their programs. So the first thing is that they put me in with swimmers of the same ability, like same speed, right? So that will always sort of put me in with 12-year-old, 11-year-olds, girls and boys, which obviously isn't ideal because there's an age gap, there's an experience gap, and there's also a goals mismatch, right? So I want to compete for the country, and everyone else is sort of just, still in it for fun, maybe wants to go to state, but there's this mismatch, right? And so this I perceive as not social inclusion, right? It's more functional inclusion, which is good, right? Because I'm still in the program, but it's just not what I really want, because obviously, there's just the mismatch. And then obviously the second half, which is the functional inclusion, is what I just talked about. But then the second ethos of the coach is, well, he's 18, he's obviously at quite a high level, how do I adjust for that, right? And so they'll put me in their top program with 21, 22-year-old males and females, and I think this works better, right? Because this like-mindedness works really well, because then I can sort of mix with them, but it's not as jarring as you would first think. Because for me, sport is a great leveler, right? Everyone respects achievement in sport, and so people are able to look past age or disability and recognise your sporting achievements for what it is. And so when I was 14, I was in a squad where the average age was 19. And so obviously at first they were like, wow, well, this kid's like 14, doesn't know what he's doing, like inexperienced, blah, blah, blah. But they sort of found that my goals were the same, my achievements were the same, and so pretty quickly, actually, everyone just sort of accepted me, right? And so I think, regardless of sport, this will always happen, whether it's like all inclusions, right? So like female, gender, anyway, this will always happen. So if you put your new members with people with like-minded goals, and their achievements are the same, it'll always work better than if you put it with their functional capabilities, because the goals are so similar and the achievements are so similar that people will just gel anyway. over this shared connection, because obviously sport is pretty tough and you gel over your experiences and trials and triumphs. And so I think that's just my sort of main point is social inclusion is the way to go forward for me, at least for the at the elite end of the spectrum. If social inclusion is what needs to happen effectively for inclusion to happen at its highest sort of level. I've got it might be a bit loud, but this is just me at the PAMPAX last year, which were in Cairns for July. And so just a couple things. The production value of this video was just as good as the production value of the AbleBods, which was really good to see, and it really sort of lifted the profile of us. So the treatment, and we had a dedicated media team, and it's all happening, right? So the para movement is going really well. And I think this also added to the swimming population accepting us more as athletes because of these high quality productions, and the way they were treating us was the same as the AbleBods, so there's less of a difference. The second thing is, obviously I'm really, you can see in my smile that I'm really enjoying it. And I think that's always the base, right? So like I said, once you have a foundation of enjoying the sport, then obviously it takes you places, but you might be able to see with my little cheesy grin that I'm, quite enjoying the experience, but maybe it might be not as well.
Mate, I'm stoked. I knew I had to get out fast if I wanted to post a good time. And I'm confident in my back end, so just really had to motor home. And you know what? Did just that. Yeah, I was a bit nervous before the race. I just put a bit of pressure on myself, trying to get the best out of myself. But once you hear the crowd give you a bit of a roar, then it's all sweet. I knew I had the crowd behind me, so why not just give it a go? That's in the books. That is definitely in the books. Get it framed, just do whatever I can, mate. That was, mate, great moment. Now we just got to go 58, hey?
And it will be Australia that takes it. Ben Popham, 59.33.
I'm trying to get down to my PB and...
That's Ellie Cole as well, who's probably the most prominent para swimmer. But so I was always enjoying it, and obviously going under the minute for the first time is pretty incredible. But just wanted to sum up real quick, and I hope that you're able to take something useful away from this. And with the risk of sounding a little arrogant, I am sort of the example of what happens if everything goes right? So if you have a good foundation and you're part of these communities and clubs that include you, that don't count you as someone that's different, you can benefit from this wealth of acceptance, if you will, and you can really perform at the highest level. And I don't think it's that hard to do, because like I said, I was ping-ponging everywhere. It wasn't a straightforward journey. It wasn't streamlined by any means, but I think hopefully as we move forward into the future, there's more of me's, if that makes sense.
Andrew, you spoke about hard acts to follow. How's that for an 18-year-old young man? Couple of key messages there around social inclusion. I really love that point around social inclusion, Ben, and that making the biggest difference in your journey as well. Ties in really well with the point that Christina made earlier, that often it takes just a change in attitude to start that process as well. So really well done. So as a bit of a wrap for tonight, just take you through where we went. So Christy Jolly took us through the power of impact. We've got 130 people or thereabouts in the room today, and I guess the key from Christy's message is really around impact is not just about numbers, and perhaps not at all about numbers. It's actually about starting one person at a time and doing things to improve their lives. When you do that often enough, you have collective impact, and that's what we're really talking about. Christina talked about the power of change, experiencing exclusion at a personal level growing up, and being in a position to be able to change a whole system and a sport, and perhaps right across the country now and greater than that as well. So great reflection there, and I really love the comment, Christina, of reflecting the community around you. If you're not sure, if you're a sport, if you're a community group here and you're thinking, where do I start? Let's have a look at the community around us. And let's actually look at that place to start. Look at community statistics. And if they aren't represented in your community club or your sporting group, well, that's exactly where we start. Joan spoke about regional engagement, passionate as always. Joan, I love the idea of a ground-up organisation, a real asset-based approach, and HCLA has been doing that and continues to do that. So 20-odd years in, and you're still going strong up there, up in Hedland. One of the key things for me was really around building trust, not being a blow-in, not going up there just to do a piece of work because you're funded to do it and then buggering off. If you go to a regional community, plenty of SSAs, state sporting associations and so forth in the room. If you have the opportunity to go and do some work up in the Pilbara, magical places like the Pilbara, the Kimberley, some great areas around WA, really make sure you invest and really make sure you're there because the community needs you. That's a really important part, and I know we've had multiple discussions around that as well. So it's about building trust and being there for the long term as well. Andrew and Diana spoke about the Wayfarer project, a project that's planting the seed to revolutionise ageing communities around Australia, hopefully. So the fact that a few months into that project that's receiving some national recognition is really important, and I really want to commend and acknowledge our partners in the town of Cambridge and Lifetime Wise in that project. So as we said earlier, that's one example. We want 40 other examples of that, so that we have communities that are welcoming of all people as we go up, as we grow older as well. Finally, Ben, mate, what a hard act. Ben talking about coaches, volunteers, clubs, we all have a role to play. It's less about difference and more about a personalised approach, and I love that focus around social inclusion and recognising from a young man, a young athlete, a young elite athlete, that's the biggest change in his journey is really important and really powerful to this group as well. In closing, I'd like to thank our special guests, as mentioned earlier. I'd also take this opportunity to thank the team at Bendak Community Centre. Karen and the team do a really fantastic job. So if you're ever thinking about a venue, it's a brilliant venue, lots of parking close to the city. It sells itself, really. I'd like to also acknowledge once again our partners, Georgie and the team at Beyond Bank. Without your support, this forum wouldn't be the same as it is today. So thank you very much for that. If you're looking for some great banking deals, Georgie, I'm sure will have the notepad out and sign you up later on tonight. Emma, once again, wherever you are, Emma, the volunteer, she's probably getting teas and coffees and whatnot ready. So it's great to have volunteers. We're really lucky as an organisation to have a committed group of people that are on this journey with us. It's about a social change, and it's about taking people on that journey, and Emma really broadly is part of that family. Bernie, to you and your team, so thank you, and we wish you all the best. Bernie's heading off to London in a week or two, so I wish you all the best on your next journey, mate, and thank you for your ongoing support. We've got an array of volunteers that you probably have met tonight. I'd also like to make mention of Inclusion WA and the staff from Inclusion WA for providing a great service and plenty of volunteers as well. Lastly, our team, Paul Flay, thank you for your ongoing support. Adam Nankin, for those of you that haven't met Adam. Jehu Dagahoy, Christy Jolly, Tom Hewson, Grace Mills, and lastly, and perhaps tonight most importantly, Amy Perry. So Amy, if you wouldn't mind just standing up for me. So, speaking of big shoes, Amy had big shoes to fill from Christy Jolly taking over the coordination of these forums, and Amy's done a really fantastic job today, so thank you very much. And one last reminder, I guess, from our point of view, please take some photos out there with Emma and Bernie. Tag us in your social media posts, once again, at Inclusion Solutions WA on social media, and also the hashtag Social Inclusion Matters. Our next forum, we've got some flyers on every table, so please take those flyers. Our next forum is going to be held at on the 7th of August in this very venue. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our guest speakers as well. So if you wouldn't mind putting your hands together for the beautiful guest speakers tonight, you've done a fantastic job. And my very final thought, I wanted to share a quote from a great human being. We've had plenty on the stage tonight, and one other great human being, Mother Teresa. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across waters that create many ripples. And I think that ties together all presentations tonight and the key message around social inclusion. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in August.